Hi, and welcome to the Black of the Plan. Our people, our problem, our solution. This is the first in our three-part virtual speaker series designed to fortify ourselves as Black folks with the tools to change the systems that impact every facet of our lives. Each episode is going to feature amazing community advocates, leaders, and experts who can uniquely speak to the disproportionate impact that COVID-19, police brutality, and other forms of systemic oppression has had on Black communities and our wellness. As Black folks, we have a long and really beautiful history of taking care of each other in systems that actively try to destroy our joy, our health, our lives, and the people that we love. And we are really excited at Black AIDS Institute to present this series within that same spirit. My name is Raniyah Copeland, and I am the president and CEO of the Black AIDS Institute. On behalf of our board, our staff, and the communities we serve, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for what I can promise you is going to be a dynamic conversation. The Black AIDS Institute is the only national HIV and AIDS think tank focused exclusively on Black people. For over 2 decades, we've worked to advance our mission of ending HIV in Black America. What HIV has exemplified is that health justice is racial justice. And ending HIV means advocacy for Black health beyond a single virus. As such, at BAI, we radically address not just the medical and social determinants of health, but all of the deeply connected systems of oppression that contribute to the overall wellness of Black people. And I don't think there's a time in our history that is more apparent than that as now. At Black AIDS Institute, we source our training and capacity building, mobilization, policy, and advocacy from efforts from Black leaders and communities across the country. We provide high quality direct HIV services and linkages here in our headquartered base of Los Angeles to over 3,000 Black Angelenos each year. All the work we do is from a uniquely and unapologetically Black point of view, and our motto speaks to our mission, which is our people, our problem, our solution. This episode is really exciting. It's going to be a 45-minute virtual experience, and we're going to be talking about Black trauma and mental wellness during intersecting pandemics. At BAI, with our team, we thought about what was the most important thing for us to start this series off with. And there was no doubt with the trauma that we've experienced with COVID and the way that it is disproportionately impacting Black folks, and now police brutality and uprisings that we're seeing and participating in, it's more critical than ever to ensure that our minds are right, that our hearts are right, that our spirits are right for the fight that lies ahead. I'm really excited to introduce our really kind of dynamic speakers and panelists for today. We first have Alexandra Elle. She is an author and wellness consultant. Alex teaches workshops and retreats centered around assisting others and finding their voices through storytelling, poetry, and narrative writing, rooted in truth without shame. Her mission is to build community and self-care practices through literature and language. She's also the author of multiple books and journals, most recently After the Rain, Neon Soul, and Today I Am, a journal that nurtures self-care. Alex, we are so excited to have you today and have your expertise and experience in this conversation.
Thanks so much for having me.
We also have Samantha Smith. Samantha, Sam sometimes. I think we're friends now, so we can say that. She's a health and wellness advisor and community voice. Samantha Smith is a mother, an entrepreneur, a healer, an educator, and a community voice. She's a clinical esthetician working within holistic spas and with naturopath doctors where she incorporates regimens to keep the internal body balanced. Samantha is also a board member of Vector 90, a South Central-based cultural hub, and co-founder of Dreamers Youth, a nonprofit youth program aiming to empower children in marginalized and underserved communities. Sam, we're so excited to have you as part of this conversation today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, excited to share.
And then last but nowhere near least, we have Dr. Siri Satnam. Dr. Siri is a licensed marriage family therapist. He has formerly worked as a clinical director, supervisor, group facilitator, therapist, and consultant in a number of social service agencies while also hosting a private practice and conducting workshops in corporations. Dr. Siri and I talked earlier, and he talked about how one of his first jobs was doing therapy at an HIV organization. And so we're excited to have you kind of in this full circle. Dr. Siri can be currently seen on the newly aired television show, The Therapist on Viceland, where he's conducting therapy with celebrity musicians such as Joe Budden, Waka Flocka, Chief Keef, DJ Loaf, and many more. Dr. Siri, thank you so much for joining us today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
So I have all these questions because there's so much to talk about as it relates to this. And I think, really kind of just laying it out, that as Black Americans, as Black folks, it is very obvious, we can feel that we are currently fighting two life-threatening pandemics that are disproportionately killing Black people. There's a viral pandemic in COVID-19, and the historical and long-lasting anti-Black pandemic that this country was founded upon. Dr. Siri, in your opinion, how are these pandemics impacting the mental and emotional wellness of Black folks?
Well, the first term that comes up is PTSD. It's like post-traumatic stress disorder. And we had one of our earlier psychologists who coined the phrase post-traumatic slave syndrome. We've been attacked throughout our history. We've been singled out. And these viruses, the AIDS virus is disproportionately affecting African Americans, so is the COVID-19, and of course the systemic racism. So fear is one thing that I think comes up very prominent within our psyche. And there's now all of these pandemics are evoking suspicion of others, like with the AIDS pandemic that we call it epidemic. We didn't know who was safe to have sex with. Now with COVID-19, no one's safe to be in their presence. And of course, systemic racism, of course, that also is very evoking in terms of suspicion with police brutality and who are our allies. And so I think the other prominent emotion is anger. The younger generation is enraged. It's like, no more, it's over. Thank you, gracias, done, finito. So, and the older generation, I think there's hope. We've been through a lot, there's hope. We see changes occurring. We see in the persistence of the protests. So there's hope that is then tempered with our bitterness and our weariness.
Thank you for that. I like the way that you broke it up by generation, because I think that it's so important for us to acknowledge how the different experiences that we have as Black people, one, are not monolithic, and then also that it impacts kind of how we show up and how different pandemics, epidemics that are particularly impacting Black people, we react differently. And I appreciate that. Sam, being Black in America demands a certain capacity to function and live every minute in an unconscious state of trauma. What emotions do you think Black Americans might be consciously or subconsciously feeling right now? And how might those feelings be really manifesting themselves in our day-to-day lives, relationships, and homes?
No, I feel like there are two different things. And to add on to what Dr. Siri was saying, I truly believe that PTSD and fear is a strong emotion right now. And two things that I feel are coming out of that, which are also fear-based, is number one, denial, and number two, survival mode. And when I say denial, because of my experience with grief and different traumas in my life, I know the first step of that is denial. And a lot of people I've seen, they're in a rush to go back to the normal, and or what they think normal is, and they're also in a rush to just like get through this and go back to their old lives, and are kind of denying the fact that no, this is an opportunity for us to grow. We have to go through this. This is a dark moment. We can't just push it to the side and act like our lives are going to just go back to what they were. And also for survival mode, I feel like, it's you or me type of thing. And we saw that with the grocery stores when everybody went in and were ransacking the grocery stores. And the first things they took were like paper towels and toilet paper, but they left vitamins, they left herbs, they left, different medicines, they even left produce that was still at the grocery stores for these first couple of weeks. So they were going in and grabbing things that necessarily weren't really going to serve them. And I think when you're in survival mode, you're not thinking long term. You're just thinking about, what you can do to make you feel good for that moment to get through it. But in my mind, we need more victors than survivors. Right now is not a time to just survive. We have to be victorious because we are up against multiple beasts right now. So we have to think long term. We have to think strategic. Spirit is strategy. God is a strategic God. So we have to really sit down. It's not just you or me. It's not about just surviving and how I can get out of this, and go back to my old life. It's about what are we going to do? What are we going to employ to really make a change and to really destroy what we're up against?
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great point. When COVID first happened, it took me a while to find toilet tissue and all kinds of different things. But it did feel very much kind of like this individual effort to try and kind of save my immediate family and make sure that we were good. And what I think we've seen with these uprisings, what we have seen, I think, from this kind of like grief and pain from the trauma of physically seeing police brutality and seeing Black folks being killed, I think is a desire for kind of this strategy and moving away from the kind of numbness and trying to be strategic, I think is what we're trying to do and trying to kind of make sure that we're fortified for that fight. And I think part of this is like being able to check in with yourselves, right? And Alex, I think that you are great with this. I think you're really well known for being able to give affirmations and journaling. And so I'm interested from your perspective, what are tactics, what are best practices that we as Black folks, we as Black communities, as family can do to help us check in with ourselves and manage all of the various experiences that we're having as Black people in this country right now?
So for me, as an author, I always go to the pen and paper. And I think it's really important for Black people to show up in their grief and also make time to show up in their joy. It's extremely important that we balance that duality. And with affirmation writing, it is proven to help uplift the spirit, uplift the soul. And also we can unlearn this narrative that we have to be one or the other. We can be both. And making space for that in our life, I think, is absolutely necessary, specifically when we feel like we're under attack and we have nowhere to turn. I also believe that folks can be their own greatest teacher and that they can lean in and find their answers within. And that's why I love being able to sit down and greet my fear with curiosity, but also accept the joy that comes up. I know it's difficult to balance, like, can I find joy in these moments? Am I allowed to be happy? And if anything, Black folks need to be celebrating their many moments of joy that come up, specifically during such a time that is really stricken with grief and fear. And also greeting those two things with curiosity and love.
What does that look like in journaling? This is something I've read about it. So tell me more. So for somebody like me who in it, I want to do it. Like, what are the recommendations that you have for people who are kind of just entering into this? How do I, as a mother with young children, as a partner to somebody, what are the things that we can do when it comes to kind of this journaling? Like, what kind of recommendations do you have, or how do we start?
So something I tell my students and my clients often is start with a gratitude list. Wake up and be grateful for something. At the end of the day, end your day, like, I guess, with these moments of gratitude. So something you can say is, I am grateful for breath in my body, right? So that may sound really surface level, but then being able to greet that with curiosity. Okay, well, why am I grateful for breath in my body? How can I dive deeper into this writing practice by being truthful, honest, and being able to say, okay, how can I show up for my community? If I have breath in my body, what else can I do? What else can I give? So I am grateful for, I am thankful for are always my go-tos for folks who are just starting, because we can always find something to be thankful for, and we can always dig a little bit deeper to peel back those layers in our writing practice.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful. And a great tangible step that I can personally take as I leave here. Dr. Siri, I would love to hear from you as well around like, what are some tactics that you recommend, some tactics and best practices that will help us check in with ourselves and manage the experiences that we're having?
Well, it would be great if we could quiet our mind. And there's a technique called reverie, where you just simply sit, be quiet, and just see what comes to you and listen to that. Of course, there's meditation where you consciously can go into a focused state of being, looking at through your third eye to see what also comes to you. Taking walks, taking baths, getting quiet. And then we can look at our behavior. Are we sleeping? How are we sleeping? Are we sleeping too much? Are we sleeping too little? Let's look at our drinking. Are we drinking too much these days? Are we smoking more than we should be? How's our eating? Are we eating less? Are we eating more? Are we eating to self-soothe, which we may get into high fats and high sugar intake, which will have a detrimental impact upon the body? I would check on the vitality that we have each day. Are we really engaged in life? Do you wake up motivated, purposeful? Do you have a plan for the day? So these are some things you can utilize. And then your relationships. Look at your relationships with yourself as well as with others. Are you isolating? Are you shutting down? Are you irritable to be with others? So these are some of the ways I think that we can tune in to really what's going on with us, quieting our mind, checking our behavior, checking your vitality, and checking your relationships.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. When I was thinking about this episode in particular, what really kind of gave me pause was that so many of us, so many Black people, so many of us as individuals, the people around us are really grieving right now. Whether it's grieving friends and family that we've lost to COVID. I don't know too many Black folks who haven't personally had somebody that's been impacted by COVID, whether it was death, illness, loss of wages, loss of job. There's also like this loss of normalcy, right? And Sam, you spoke a little bit about this, but the 2020 that I thought I was going to have is no more, right? And so there's this grieving process around kind of loss of normalcy. And then I think there's this like kind of general or this interconnected grieving that we as Black folks are feeling when this kind of our humanity is constantly challenged, when our humanity is constantly taken away, when we see people who look like us are constantly being killed. And I think there's just so many levels of grieving that we as Black people, as individuals are having, grieving that we as a collective are having. I'm interested for whoever wants to answer, what does grief look like? Because I've talked to folks, and for some people, they're completely numb. And for some people, they're really trying to push through whatever their to-do list is. And so what does grief look like? And how do we grieve right now? How do we grieve in a way that's healthy? How do we grieve in a way that speaks to and nourishes what we need?
Well, I think what is very interesting, I will speak for men and I'll let the ladies speak for the ladies. Depression for men looks very different than it does for ladies. We're not in the DSM-4 in terms of depression. We will engage in a lot of sex or not have any sex. We'll drink. This is all depression. We'll isolate. We'll shut down. We'll get angry and very irritable at our mates and at our children. So we will sometimes hurt the ones that that we love with words, and sometimes it can get into domestic violence, unfortunately. So ladies are prone more to get into their feelings and to let those feelings come with tears and sadness. But men have difficulty saying, I'm hurting. That means we're vulnerable, we're soft, and we're not socialized that way. And so I think that is a disservice the way we raise our young boys, to where they cannot acknowledge, express hurt and grief.
Yeah. No, I do understand that. I think that it probably looks different across genders, but I think that the way we socialize boys and girls are very different. And that shows up in how we grieve and how we are depressed. And I think that it also kind of shows up in what we think depression is. That, one side, I think that at least what I historically think, I think what I've been socialized to think depression looks like is the kind of crying all the time, not getting out of bed. But I appreciate you kind of lifting up the way depression really can look different, particularly based off of how we're socialized based off of gender. Sam, I saw that you wanted to say something as well.
I was, even to the point that he just made, I feel like there are many levels to grief. And it doesn't, everybody grieves differently. So what one person's grief looks like, that's not what the next person's grief is going to look like. And I feel like also it is extremely, extremely lonely, because if somebody hasn't gone through exactly what you're going through, which 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have gone through exactly what you're going through, they're not going to always be able to understand. So I think that, the grieving process is very tricky. It's very difficult. Every day is different. You may wake up one day and you have energy and you're excited and you're passionate about life and what's going on and you're grateful. And then other days it's like the complete opposite. So I think that, it manifests in many ways, but I think what's most important is for us to just check into with ourselves. Do we love ourselves? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we grateful that we still have life, that we still have breath, that we're still here, that we have another day to wake up to put forth to youth some of these lessons and some of these new things that we've learned along this process. And I think just, being real and being honest with yourself, and then also keeping people around that respect you, that really do love you, that really do see you, because it's like a maze. And if you have, people along the way that aren't really genuinely there to support you and uplift you, you can find yourself kind of falling into different layers of grieving, because grieving doesn't necessarily mean just losing somebody in life. It's losing a partner. It's losing this country to this racism that we're dealing with. It's losing this country to this other pandemic. Grieving comes in all different forms and fashions. So I think that it's very important that we pay attention to the circle and who we surround ourselves with. We know ourselves, because at the end of the day, we have to have the light to reveal the light. So it's really about us and knowing who we are and where we stand at every phase, and being, gentle with ourselves when we aren't having the best of days either.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful. We've talked about kind of ourselves as individuals and how do we check in with ourselves, how do we deal with grief? And it goes without saying that we're also worried about the health and safety of our loved ones. We all want to know how the people that we love, the people that we care about, how they're really doing, but often, we can't find the right words. Alex, I would love for you to talk a little bit about language that helps us connect with each other. What are some questions we can ask our loved ones besides, hey, are you okay? That will really help us check in and connect with our friends and family. I know I'm really guilty of this. I start my work calls, hey, how's everybody doing? And I'm like, oh, person.
Yeah.
I know it's not good, but this is kind of this, I think we're so used to asking people how they are without really wanting to know how they are. So, how can we check in a meaningful way with the folks that we care about?
Well, I know for me, I like to ask folks, how can I show up for you? How can I support you? But as well, I'm also learning to name what I need. I think a lot of times, especially in the Black community, we especially Black women, we feel like we kind of have to carry the weight of everything and that we have to do it all. And really, the true resilience and strength for me looks like asking for help and naming what I need. So for me, it's checking in for folks. How can I support you today? How can I love on you today? I'm praying for you. I'm lifting you up. I'm holding space for you. And then it's also when I need something to name it, and to name it honestly, not just, I'm doing okay. If I'm having a crappy day, I'm going to say, hey, I'm having a crappy day. Here's what I need from you, from my loved ones, from my husband, from colleagues, etc. So it's about being honest in our process, being gentle with our process, and also kind of looping back to the whole grief conversation, knowing that grief comes in waves and that it's okay. And that sometimes, things are going to suck. And also, it is all right to say, hey, I need you right now. We don't have to always be strong. Sometimes there is strength in leaning on our community.
What are some things that you've said that you need from folks? I'm taking my own notes. What are the things that you would say, this is what I need? And I know they probably are different for different people, but like, what are some of those things?
So for me, I need to move my body. I need to go out for a walk. I have 3 children here and a husband. I know I'm privileged in that if I need to step away, I can. So being able to say to my husband, hey, I need some time. And everyone knows when mom needs some time, I'm going to go move my body. I'm going to go wash my face for day, and have like just a moment. And it's also saying, hey, can you cook today? Or asking a girlfriend, hey, sis, I really loved that curry you made that last time, can you make some for me? And just being able to trust that your community is going to support you. And if they can't, they're going to be able to say, hey, I can't right now, but here's how I can. So just being able to like go with the flow of things, especially during this time, everything is so different and unique and changes on a daily basis. So I think it's important for us to hold space for the fact that everything isn't going to be how we want it when we want it. And sometimes it's just taking a step back, taking a pause, getting back into our bodies and understanding that we do have, the right to say, hey, I need you, and have people be there for us to help.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I think this is within the same kind of spirit around like, how do we support the folks that we love? For many of us, particularly people in the Black community, we have friends and family that are incarcerated right now. I know that's something in our family that we're dealing with, that we have, an immediate family member who's incarcerated. And really, we're thinking about how can we help support and advocate for them right now. And, I think for us, it's something we're continuing to struggle with thinking about. And Dr. Siri, I would love for you to speak a little bit to this. How do we support our loved ones, our family members who are currently incarcerated during these times?
Well, our juveniles who are incarcerated, well, number one, we can't visit right now because of COVID. We can't visit the juveniles or the adults who are incarcerated. So that's really a great loss. But the children, the juveniles who are incarcerated, all we can do is put them in a light, and hope that they're doing well. They get everything they need in terms of the mask and toothpaste and all of that. We can check in with them with phone calls, and we may be able to speak to them, but they can call us. With the adults, we can send them care packages. We can put money on the books. We can send them magazines and books. We can send them letters, and I think probably the artwork. We can send them to do artwork, and I think the greatest thing is to send them pictures of major events that are happening throughout the family, graduations, when the baby ate his first food by himself, or parties. So celebrations, pictures, I think, would keep connected, the family member connected with the family.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we have a family member who has started a Facebook group connecting people who've been incarcerated. And, you know, they can't, the people who are family members who are incarcerated, they can't kind of like log in to Facebook, but knowing that there is this network of folks who are lifting up their folks who are incarcerated, who are looking for and advocating for change around mass incarceration has been something that I've seen some of our family do that has been really meaningful for folks who are locked down right now. So, and I love the idea of care packages and obviously putting money on the books and sending pictures. So thank you for that. It seems like, you know, we have to lift their spirits up as well.
Yeah.
Also making sure they get information and news because there's not always reliable sources and the kind of information they get is really limited. So thank you for that. There is privilege that most of us have, right? Whether we are cisgender, so we identify with the gender we are assigned at birth, whether we still have income coming in. And I think for sure, being able to quarantine has been a privilege. But there are many people who are not, they don't have the privilege to quarantine, whether it's the amazing people who are putting themselves on the line to protest and who are really advancing the change and the new dialogue and the national and really global conversation that's happening. We also have people who are experiencing homelessness and are people whose jobs include being on the front line and being essential workers, whether it's at the grocery stores or in medical facilities. What advice can we give to those folks who are putting themselves in really kind of harm's path as it relates to COVID? And I'm interested for anybody who would love to kind of answer and speak to this.
Well, I think what all three of those populations have in common, the homeless, the protesters, and the essential workers, is that they all are going to war. They are all at risk for losing their life. I don't know about the protesters so much, but yes, there's harm in their way also. So with the protesters and with all of these populations, support, you know, just continue to give them support and to continue to do the service, particularly the protesters and the essential workers, support. And so the essential workers, of course, they have to take care of themselves, follow the regulations, wear the mask, wash your hands. And if the organization you're working in is not following the regulations, you have the right to speak up and say, I am not protected in this particular situation. I need fiberglass around me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the essential workers have to continue to build their immune system with, you know, the vitamins, the zinc, the vitamin C. I would go to the medical doctor to see if I have any deficiencies or at risk any kind of way and get taken care of there, of course, to get tested. And then perhaps to enter therapy themselves to where they can get professional support. I did talk to some essential workers and they were saying how people would come into their job and say, oh my God, how can you come to this job every day? And that negativity wears on them. So to go to therapy themselves, and then the homeless, oh my God, I think we have one of the largest homeless populations in the nation, and they're at war every day. They're fighting for their safety, for food perhaps, their health and well-being. I know the mayor has created some hotels for the homeless and some temporary shelters. I think that a whole task force should be created for the homeless, and there are not enough agencies. Of course, that's a very complicated population because sometimes mental illness is there also. And so I think that which is in common to all of them is that they're at risk, and they're putting their family members and others at risk, and to take care of themselves so they can take care of those that they come home to.
Thank you. Sam, Alex?
I agree. And I would also say, you know, like he was saying, they're at war, and they're at war with two different things. They're at war with a physical attack, and they're at war mentally being attacked as well. So I think number one, making sure that they're taking care of their bodies and what you eat is going to have, and what you take in, and the vitamins are going to have effect on your mental state as well. So for the essential workers and for the protesters, vitamin D, I would recommend that for everybody. We already know as Black people, we have a lower levels of vitamin D naturally in us, and being in the house quarantining so much, people aren't getting that natural sunlight either. They've done studies and tests that shows that vitamin D lowers chemicals in the brain that are causing depression. So it's good for the mind. And they've also done tests that people that have higher levels of vitamin D in their system are less susceptible to get the flu, which is a virus. So I think that that is something that's major that people can do. Eat well, make sure that you're drinking a lot of water. Our bodies are 90% water. So if you're taking that in, you're constantly flushing and cleansing your system. Breathing. I practice breathing every day in the morning, like deep, 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 deep breaths, because a lot of times when our bodies are under stress, we breathe more shallow and we're not taking in all the air and all the oxygen that we should be. So we need to just really practice breathing, being present. For the homelessness, it is a huge problem. And I would suggest, whenever you can, you have an opportunity to give. I've seen to where I'll give money and then now cars behind me are giving money, and it sparks something. So I think just give to people and understand that, it's bigger than just us and we have to all work together. Right now what's happening with racism and what's happening with COVID, they want to divide us because the divide and conquer tactic, it just works. So we want to make sure that we're sticking together, we're helping each other, we're taking care of our minds, bodies, and spirits. And I would suggest these people out on the front lines to do that.
Thank you for that. I mean, you and Dr. Siri talked about, and I think this has come up a couple times now, how important like vitamins, water, like taking care of ourselves, right? There is obviously the medical system where we have like pharmacies and, pharmaceuticals that can help, but like before we even get there, how do we make sure we are taking care of ourselves and taking vitamins, drinking water, the deep breathing? So I really appreciate y'all lifting that up because I think that that's something that we need to really kind of lean on more heavily. And I've talked to folks about it in different circles, but I'm excited to have this kind of brought up here in this conversation. I surely have been at my Black Whole Food stores, getting all the different vitamins. I've seen all the links to the sea moss and all those different things and the alkaline waters and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Alex, do you have anything else you want to add on this?
I would definitely say rest as well. I think that we need to remember to take a break and a breather into sleep, specifically during this time, especially if we're out on the front lines, protesting, being essential workers, etc. Like we really need to rest. Rest is also a radical act of self-care and resistance. And if we are not full, if we are not filling ourselves up, it is very hard to go out into our communities and be our full self. So rest is essential.
I agree.
Yeah, thank you for that. So we have a couple more minutes before we close out. And so I want to give you guys each, a short period of time to just kind of wrap up and give a recommendation around what you think we all need as Black folks to make sure that we're fortified, like Alex said, how we are filling ourselves up. Next week's series is about change, and it's called Be the Change, Advocating for Our Freedom. And we wanted to make sure that we started this week off talking about how we fill ourselves up, because we have a lot of change that needs to happen. We have a lot of fight that needs to be fought. And so I would love for you guys to kind of close us out, each of you, with a recommendation for how we can make sure that our mental is right, that our hearts are right, that our spirits are right as we fight this fight for a freedom that Black folks have never known before.
Well, family is family. That's what this whole series was about. And I think we should love family as much as we can. And the one good note about this is that, in favor for some others, a bad note, is that the fear keeps us at home. So we now have to we have more time with our family members. We can eat dinners with our family members. We can get to know our family members. I know this can also have a downside, that this closeness can also, evoke issues and problems, that we have this closeness. And I think the parents need to be aware of this, that the children can't get out, to play as much as with their friends. And so this could cause also some parental parenting problems. This could cause marital problems, relationships. I hope divorce does not go up because of this. But this is bringing the family close together, these pandemics, that we cannot just be in the streets like we used to. And and there's a suspicion still of others. So family we can trust. And so it really is doing something to the family, all of these pandemics.
Thank you, Dr. Siri. Sam, do you mind giving us something?
Yes.
Final words?
I feel like right now, with everything going on, number one, even though that we are in difficult, tough situations, we're blessed to be able to see things for what they really are. Things are being revealed to us. And once something is revealed to you, you have the opportunity to heal, you have the opportunity to grow, and you have the opportunity to change it. So I think that, I would say that everybody just take this time, focus on, first focus on your personal weaknesses and your personal strengths, how you can fix yourself, because how can you fix the world if you can't even fix your household? How can you save our people and you can't even save yourself? So you got to worry about what you can fix within you right now. And because we have this time where we're at home, we have less distractions, use it to your advantage. Pay attention to what you're eating, because we have health systems that are designed for disease care. They're not really designed for health care. So you have to do all the prevention that you need, because once you got to go to them hospitals, they're just trying to take care of the sickness that is already present. So I think we really take this time to really get in tune with ourselves, understand what we need to work on as, on a personal level. Therefore, we can give back to our community, we can give back to our nation, and we can show up our highest, best self.
Thank you so much for that. Alex, do you have some last words for us?
Yeah, I would just encourage people to get comfortable with getting into their bodies, meaning finding moments of rest, finding moments of deep breathing, as Sam mentioned, really and truly addressing the things that, could be scaring us right now, greeting our curiosity with fear. That's just been a mantra of mine for the past 2 months. What can I learn from fear? How can I lean in a little bit instead of running away from it? So that is how I'm getting back into my body these days. And I encourage folks to even use that as a journal prompt. How am I getting back in my body these days? And I hope that can be of support to someone, because truly we have to be in our bodies in order to be out in the world.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful. Thank you guys, Dr. Siri, Sam, Alex, for being here with us today. I can't think of some better folks. I can't think of a better conversation to have than the one we just had for what is going to be our 3-part series. And so thank you to the audience who's been here. We have been grateful to have you. Please make sure you show up with us for next week on Be the Change, Advocating for Our Freedom. I hope that I'm going to be here next week, so I'll make sure I ask some questions. Did we journal? Did we take some deep breaths? How we've been moving our body to make sure that we're really filled up for what comes next. I want to also thank our sponsor for this event. We have Gilead Sciences, who was gracious enough to say, this is a great idea. This is something that we want to support. And so thank you for that partnership. And we are looking forward to seeing you guys here next week. For everybody who signed up, we also have some amazing virtual goodie bags. We're in COVID-19, so we're physically distancing, but we still have a little swag bag for folks. And so you'll receive this email tomorrow with some amazing discounts and resources that are related to ensuring that our mental is right, that our heart is right, and that our soul is right. Thank you guys so much for being here. On behalf of our board, of our staff, I'm so honored to be at Black AIDS Institute and lead this agency, and really our movement and our effort to end HIV by ending the disparities that really intersect and impact Black folks. Dr. Siri, Alex, Sam, thank you guys again, and we look forward to being back with you all next week.
Thank you. Bye.